Hey guys, what's up? Got you guys up on my head here with my GoPro. I figured this would be a little bit easier to film the project from the GoPro. That way you guys can actually see my perspective and I don't have to worry about tripods and setting cameras up and stuff. So anyway, just cleaning off the clutch case here. The last bits of gasket sealer. When I first took this bike apart, I used a gasket sealer, head gasket stuff, Permatex around this, and it worked really well, but you know, it's a bitch when you have to take the bike back apart because then you got to take sandpaper to this and it takes a long time. So this time we're not going to be doing that because I got a gasket, so that'll be cool. Anyway, I was going to go a little bit faster on this project. I know I was saying that, but I decided to slow it back down. I've got to wait for purchase to show up here because this is my clutch basket drive gear, and I always knew that this thing had a bad problem, but I wasn't originally going to excuse me, got the cold right now, so it's real hard to talk. Anyway, I wasn't originally going to replace this, but I've decided to because I was looking it over and you can see that some of my gear teeth are kind of chipped away just a little bit, and you can see some really bad damage here. You can see that. So what caused that was when the bike originally sat before I owned it for who knows how much time, there was some water in the case, and the water sat there at just the right level to eat away at the clutch basket drive gear and the retaining plate here. You can see that the retaining plate's pretty badly indented too from corrosion. So I was originally going to keep this because it didn't look like it was going to be a big problem, but I started thinking about it, and you know, two-strokes have a lot of vibration throughout the entire motor. You know, it's just the nature of the beast, and obviously if it's vibration, you know, a finished gear to a non-finished gear surface like this gritty surface because of the, you know, rusting and wear, is not a good thing. So I started looking on eBay and I found somebody who had one of these for 80 bucks and the retaining plate for 33, and I was originally going to do that until I caught a better deal. I just typed in a slightly different thing. I was looking for hand guards, and I found, clutch lever, hand levers, you know, for the handlebars. And I found an entire clutch lot for sale for 75 bucks over in the UK. The guy has this. He's got the retaining plate. He's even got 6 spare friction plates, which these are almost impossible to find for this bike. So, I mean, I found a set of 6 that were used for a pretty good price. I have them in that box over there. But it looks like I'm going to have a few more spares. He's got that. He's got some bearings that have to do with the transmission, which I don't really need, but it's just nice to have. So, yeah, he's got an entire clutch lot and some assortments of shims and bearings for 75 bucks. And it's about 30 bucks to ship it here, but I just couldn't say no, you know. Might as well replace it, because for 75 bucks to have a little bit of peace of mind is a good thing. Only thing that sucks about that clutch basket is it has some surface rust on it, but it's not like this. I've looked at the pictures and it ain't that deep, so that should work out. So yeah, the project's going to be slowed down because of all this. Again, I've got to wait for shipping and stuff, and I figured it'd just be better to take my time. But what I can do today is I can get the cylinder and the head on, so we can go ahead and do that. And it's not a lot of work there, but it's still something. So the first thing we have to do is we got to wash the cylinder down. That's what it says in the instructions, and I talked to my machine shop guy today, and he said, yeah, you might want to do that. So we got to take some hot soapy water to it, and take a toothbrush here and some dish soap, and just wash this out. I had my machine shop guy check the piston ring gap there. That's why it's in there right now, and it's exactly where it belongs, so that's good. So I'm just going to take the time here to clean up the piston, clean up the cylinder, and wash the head one more time. You can see I started to clean this up. I had it sandblasted a little bit. So, yep, we're going to do that, and then we're going to try to put this thing together. all ready to go here, all laid out on my makeshift workbench here. First step we're going to do is get the piston back onto the connecting rod. And you want to make sure that this arrow here is facing the exhaust side. That's why they cast that on there. In order to get the gouging pin, or the wrist pin as we call it, through this hole, they recommend you heat the piston, and they recommend you use a hot towel, which I don't know how the heck you're supposed to get a towel hot enough to do that. So what I like to do is use a heat gun. My dad has one, so I'm going to heat this sucker up just enough so that it expands the metal, and that helps the pin go through easier. A minute and a half. Now this thing is so hot I can't even touch it. Oh yeah, that's warm. Okay, so now they recommend to use a couple pieces of wood to support the piston up. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to knock any sawdust into my case or anything like that. So I'm just going to locate the connecting rod, crankshaft all the way down to the lowest point here so that it's kind of nice, and we're going to just get started on this. This might take a little bit of fidgeting around with to get everything aligned. Oh, also I forgot, that's still warm enough probably. I'll have to warm that up probably a couple times. That goes in there. Got to put the bearing in. Don't want to do that. Okay. And actually, maybe I'll try it with it up first. Oh yeah, that's warm. Now, if you actually get this hot enough, the pin should just go right in, no problem. Ah, look at that, yeah. It's going in quite nicely. I don't even need to drive against it or anything. So make sure the piston's aiming the right way. It is. And I might go around onto the other side here, just so I can see what I'm doing. Raise this up, get it nice and aligned. As the piston cools down, metal will start to contract, get harder to push this through, so only have so much time to do this. It's already starting to get a little bit tougher to move it through. There we go. Almost got it. It's pretty well aligned. You just need to maybe give it a little bit of a tap on the back side, just enough. Normally I would use a circular socket wrench, just the handle end of it. I don't have one up here. I have this old shifter spindle, which is useless to me now. You can put a little bit of back pressure on it right there like so, and just give it a little tap or two. Yep, it's moving it. Okay, make sure that that's all nice, well, and good. Don't want to damage the head or anything, but it looks okay right there. Let's look at the other side again. And yeah, that's good. Okay. It's ready to go. Alright, so next we're going to get these clips in here, these little retainers for the wrist pin. They keep the wrist pin in place. And as you can see, I already got one in. The method is what I like to do anyway with these is I basically put the bottom part in like so, and I aim the tab like that. I take these needle nose pliers here and just kind of squeeze it and push it in, and there you go. Simple. Just take the gasket here and put it on down. Nothing too complicated about that. I'm going to fit the cylinder down onto the transmission, and they recommend that you use, a piston ring compressor, which I don't have. And since this isn't a very big engine, this ring isn't that strong, so you can do it with your hands. But before I do that, I actually want to do something that the book doesn't say to do, and that's I want to put a little bit of oil on the piston ring, around the piston, because I just don't want to leave the cylinder dry, and it's nice to have a little bit to start. So I'm going to take a little bit of the 2-stroke racing oil here, just enough. Put a little bit on this brush here, and I'm just going to run this around the piston here, around the ring, just a little bit, just to help aid it along down the cylinder. So that'll help also with getting it to sit down nicely. This K2 formula is what my motorcycle guy was saying is good stuff for old engines, and he was saying you can actually run it 40-1. I think I'm going to run this bike a little richer than that, but you don't want to go too rich because it can cause problems as well. A little difficult since I don't have a ring compressor. This might take a few tries, but we're going to face this in the right direction. Make sure that everything is good. And we're just going to try and compress that ring into the cylinder there. Got the ring in the right spot with the pin. Just going to use our fingers here to try and get it down. And this might take a little bit of trial and error, or it might go nice and easy. We'll see. Things align nicely. Yeah, it started to move on me. They recommend that you use the wood here to support up the piston so it doesn't just go down with the cylinder as you're working it. But like I had said earlier, I don't want to risk getting any kind of like sawdust or anything in my motor, so I'm sure we'll get it here soon enough. Just takes a little bit of doing. There we go. Wasn't too bad. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. The camera might not have been aligned right for that, but I got it in with my fingers there. Since it's not a very big engine, like I was saying, you can get away with using just your hands. In a bigger motor, like a car engine or whatever, you definitely need a ring compressor, but for this situation, it's not so crucial. So we're just going to try and get this thing to sit down nicely. Oop, easy does it. There we go. And that oil definitely helped. Actually, another thing we could have done too was if we would have taken the heat gun and heat up this, it'll expand this metal, and since the piston is I think it's a forged aluminum, it expands at a different rate, so it'll be smaller. That will also help you get things together. That's another method you can do. So now we'll just make sure everything sits nice and flat, and that'll have her. Alright guys, I'm going to switch back to my camcorder here for a little bit to try to get rid of some of the shaky film work, because that's a problem with filming with the GoPro. I apologize for that. Time to put the head gasket on here. I have a brand new copper head gasket. I've got several of these actually for spares. Now copper head gaskets seal a little bit better. These tend to be more of a high performance thing versus the original aluminum crush gaskets. Alright, so here's a hang-up that would annoy most people. So you can see that this bike gets a couple extra little support screws there, or bolts. Doesn't seem like it'd be too big of a deal to find. You just go to the hardware store and check out the metric bins, since it's a European bike. Well, this happens to be the size that is almost impossible to find in America. 7mm, or M7 machine screws. These guys right here. I had to go to Fastenal, and they had to place an order all the way out to Indiana just for these two bolts. They cost $1.10 a piece. So, yeah, imagine that little hang up. It's a good thing that I found somebody that had them because, you know, like I said, I went to my hardware store and all the bins go from M6 to M8. They skip M7. And that's fairly common here in America. Talk to most motorcycle shops and they'll give you that look if they find something that's an M7 and you're missing it. And they'll be like, well, good luck, you're going to have to order it online. So the book recommends that you tighten these in a diagonal fashion, so, you know, kind of like a tire, like one here, then here, then here. And I'm going to do that once they're threaded all the way down, but I'm just going to get them started first. And there we have it, guys. Got the cylinder and the head back on to the transmission. That part of the engine reassembled. Finally, I can stop worrying about the open cylinder and open crankcase. It's nice and sealed up. So, now I just gotta get the clutch figured out there, wait for that to show up and get that all reassembled. Get the air filter situation figured out. I got somebody who might be able to give me a full air filter. I'm emailing them, waiting for some responses. And once I get those two things figured out, get the carburetor and fuel system addressed, I can finally see if this thing turns over. But once I get the clutch on there, I'll actually be able to see what the compression is. I'm really curious for that. So, yep, hopefully this thing will run. It's getting closer and closer every day.